Welcome to the Future of Work Live. We're supposed to have an intro, but I don't know what happened to it. I clicked on it and it doesn't seem to want to work. So what do you know? I don't know what that is about, and we'll try it here one more time. I know this is what happens with live, so we don't have that. So I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and get to our our show today. And notice how that just really threw me off. Here I'm supposed to be a pro, and so here we are. And this is the Future of Work Live, and I'm your host, Mark Salisbury. And today our guest is Jaci Badzin, and she's going to be talking about how not to lose your soul in the metaverse. So we have a special introduction for her, and we're going to bring this particular person on, and it's Socrates Digital, which is fitting for that we have someone with 1 foot in the metaverse and 1 foot in our real world, and have him introduce Jaci Badzin. So here he comes to do that, and we're going to go ahead and hear from him.
Jaci Badzin is a sought-after experienced designer and futurist. Jaci has created global brand experiences for Nike, Google Events, and YouTube, where she oversaw the strategic execution functions of multi-million-dollar sales-generating events. She also held the role of experienced lead at renowned design thinking agency IDEO, where she oversaw the experience for employees, visitors, and clients. As the co-founder of TechTable, Jaci has brought together the most forward-thinking minds in hospitality, tech and investment to reimagine and shape the future of hospitality innovation. Today, Jaci consults with Fortune 500 brands, startups, non-profits, and has been a featured speaker at the United Nations.
Very good. And I noticed that we didn't hear that very well. So I don't know what happened to our sound because I did this a few minutes ago. So I'm just having one of those days where issues are here. So I'm going to make sure we know about Jaci and her background. So I'm going to repeat some of this. And it's worth repeating, to be honest. And so we know that she is a sought after experienced designer, and she's created global brand experiences for Nike, Google Events, YouTube, where she oversaw the strategic and execution functions of a multi-million-dollar sales generating events. She also held the role of experienced lead at renowned design thinking agency, IDEO, where she oversaw the experience of employees, visitors, and clients. As the co-founder of TechTable, Jaci has brought together the most forward-thinking minds in hospitality tech investment to reimagine the shape and future of hospitality innovation. Today, Jaci consults with Fortune 500 brands, startups, nonprofits, and has been a featured speaker at the United Nations. Wasn't that worth repeating? I certainly think so. So let's go ahead and not wait another second. Let's bring Jaci on. Hi, Jaci. Nice for you to be here today.
I think the double introduction with one being digital and one being in person is really the perfect way to kick off this conversation. So thank you for both of those. Thank you for both of those.
An underlying theme on our discussion today is that things could go wrong in the technology world.
Yes, it can.
It can. I've done this show, this is like our 14th episode, and I've never had, and it would not play the video at the beginning.
Really?
I clicked and it's like, hey, I'm just not playing, right? And it's like, what is that about? And then I just did Socrates Digital, and his voice was fine. It was loud. And I mean, literally, like 20 minutes ago, and I click on it. No, it's really low and you can't hardly hear it. So there you go. But you know what? We're still going to be informational and have fun. So let's get to today's really what it's about.
And let's get to it.
Yeah, let's get to it. And one of the things that is the topic for this, and kind of the essence of this show, is don't lose your soul to the metaverse. All right. And so that was actually your phrase when we went back and forth. So what do you mean by that?
So it's interesting because earlier today I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a brilliant guy. And his belief is that the metaverse doesn't have a future if it doesn't have a soul. And I thought, that is such an incredible sentiment, and it's such an incredible goal to have. And I share that hope, but unfortunately, I'm a little bit more of a realist. And I think, as people are developing new products, new platforms, new ways to engage, new ways to connect, new ways to perhaps even reinvent yourself, I want to make sure that we're staying true to um, who we are as humans, and making sure that your individual personality is also being brought to life through the metaverse. I also want to make sure that as people, are looking at Web3 and how to build it, what the future looks like, what the future of the metaverse looks like, that it doesn't get stuck in the kind of the monetization realm, and that where people aren't just building things because it's trendy, because it's super profitable, and really making sure that we're staying true to what is being developed. Are we actually creating things that are useful? Are we creating platforms that do promote equality? Are these really true community-based programs? How are we furthering people's connections by having people continuing to engage in the metaverse? So I think that it's a big question. And again, I love his sentiment that, it doesn't have a future if it doesn't have a soul. But if we use that as kind of our thesis, then how can we use that, I would say, more of as our North Star, and making sure that we keep that in mind as we either build or we engage. So if you're more of a consumer of the products or the platforms, where are you going and where are you putting your time and your energy? Is it actually furthering your life in better ways, your family's life, your friend's life? So I think that I'll just start with that, and I'm curious to see kind of what thoughts you have. I could talk for 10 minutes.
The thing that comes to my mind when I see the metaverse and I see some of the platforms that are now emerging, and we know some of the big guys are gone, that
Mhm.
Facebook is, which is Meta,
Yeah,
right, is trying to create a platform, and Microsoft has jumped in kind of quietly, but they're
yep.
already there, and they're going to build it on top of Teams. That's what they're going to do. But
Mhm.
I can't shake this feeling that I've seen it before, deja vu all over again, right? Do you remember
Yep.
Second Life? Did you ever see Second Life? It's been a
Yes.
while. Yes, it's
Yes.
right after in the early
Yes.
2000s, and
Yep.
so I thought, well, this is pretty cool. So I got into Second Life, and some professional associations would have events, and you could go as an avatar. And so
Yeah.
I even
Yeah.
fixed mine up, and my avatar actually had a cup, because
That's
I always
amazing.
have a cup wherever I go. And so, but it never really quite broke. You know what I mean? It got kind of interesting. People talked about it. It became jokes at late night television. Um, and I think it's because they tried to monetize it too quick.
Uh,
That they tried the idea of selling property, and then businesses could have properties. And then, so you
yeah.
buy this digital products, and so it kind of dwindled off. And then now it seems like we're back. and
We are,
and then,
we are
yeah,
back. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I really resonate with what you're saying. Is if it's just about monetizing, then we're
Yeah.
not seeing what I see is actually the benefit of the metaverse. The possibility, the potential is more around. It can help us work way more effectively. It can
Yeah.
help us actually be much more inclusive to people
Yep.
and be able to tap their talents. And we can be able to now accelerate our ability to innovate. And so I think there's some real powerful ideas there and this is what the show is about, right? The future of work. But I think that what's going to happen is it's going to be overshadowed by the future of sales, right? And so that's
Well,
what my concern
yeah,
is.
the future of monetization over the future of community. That's a whole topic on itself. Yeah, in taking a look, it's interesting you bring up Second Life, because it's something that I've also talked with people about, and we kind of laugh at it. But there's things that are being these kind of alternative worlds that are being created right now. Um, there's a lot of depth there, and I don't want to, just kind of throw that away. There are people that in this world do not have a lot of families, or perhaps don't have a lot of friends, and have really formed their own. They use the word family. So there are families within these games, or within these different metaverse realities, um, that they rely on each other, and they've never met in real person, like in real life. And I hope that they do at some point. There are people that are developing new skills and using that to earn money through, very small increments now, but through the different metaverses that they are working in, through, if it's designing clothes, if it's movies, if it's creating, shorts. Like, there is so much there. But that's, just like one piece of kind of this larger picture that we're talking about. Because there's a lot of components to the metaverse and to Web3 and to crypto and to all these different aspects of it, that are converging now in a really exciting way, and so many new opportunities for growth and exploration and all the things that I love, curiosity. I just would also hope that we kind of take a look back, maybe perhaps not necessarily to Second Life, even though I'd love that, but Web 2, and where social media started, and kind of to see what's happened from that. That it really started as this interesting platform to share updates and share photos and connect with different people, and businesses were started. And then slowly but surely advertising came in, and there's bots and there's disinformation, and it's a whole complicated situation that started from a really kind of, incredible place of curiosity and connection. And to see where it's gone, and how far we've swung, I just want, it's something that I really hope that people look to as they are diving deeper into this kind of Web3 world and metaverse world. Because I know, being part of, the companies I was part of when Web 2 was really up and coming, it was exciting. And it felt like all these unlimited opportunities. And looking back, that was 10 plus years ago, and you see that where we are now, it's a big flag. So that's more of my message too, is this, how do you bring your soul into the metaverse? How are you taking your aspects from what you've put into the metaverse and bring it back into real life, and to make sure, that we're kind of looking back on previous examples of what went wrong, and how do we steer clear from that? How do we course correct before we kind of hit that point?
Yeah, one of the things, and you and I have chatted around this topic, but one of the things I find really fascinating is, and I think the metaverse kind of heightens this, is that some of those old values that we have entrusted over the years are coming back. I grew up in a little logging town in Oregon, and my dad was a logger. He gave me a lot of lessons around, be honest, work hard.
Yeah.
Things like your word is your bond, right? All those things. And then I think we kind of lost it for a while in the internet. We got a kind of anonymous people, and then we have anonymous comments about other people. Some of them not very good, but people didn't stand behind their statements. And I think what's starting to happen now is that people are starting to recognize that we can trace identities. We do know, if you want to work with someone, that all of those traits that we thought were old fashioned and corny and stuff are actually coming back and more important than ever, right? And so I think that's that little soul piece that you're talking about, is we want to really know the essence of the beings that we're connecting with, and not just their avatars.
Show their character, their essence. I really believe in that. I love. First of all, I did not know that you grew up out in Oregon, and in a kind of a logging community, and that you're now talking about the future of work. I think that's so fascinating. And on that, kind of touching on this idea of like values and character, it's something that I feel like outside of the metaverse, even companies are having to do that now. So it's something that I feel like is from across the board, from individuals to the the companies that are hiring people and what do they stand for. And I hope that it's a trend that will continue to grow and that will also find its way into the metaverse and into Web3, because I think it did get lost a little bit. It did, and this kind of move fast, break things mentality, ask for forgiveness, not for permission, which was something that I believed in kind of in my like core for years. And I'm happy to kind of rethink and relearn. But to be a little bit more thoughtful about who you're designing for, who you're connecting with, who you are, and holding on to those values and not just throwing them away for, something shiny and new. That's cooler in the metaverse. And I think this is really talking about, especially what I'm most concerned about is, young people. I have many nieces and nephews. They're all amazing people, but it's a concern. And coming out of COVID and being kind of isolated for so long, I worry a bit about, kids and teens and tweens, their kind of social development, right? There are stories now of people, adults and kids, not wanting to take off their masks. They feel more comfortable, especially
Mhm.
kids. Now, this is not about health by any means. It's more of just a chance to hide. And I don't want people to hide, and I don't want people to use the metaverse to hide. I want it to be an opportunity to be an extension and exploration of who they are, and different skills that they can learn and people that they can meet and things that they can do. But I don't want that to exclude from engaging in real life, and making sure that
Yeah.
your person, your character is good in the values and that you have strong connections with people. So yeah.
Yeah, you bring that which you learned in real life to
Mhm.
the metaverse, right? And all
Yeah.
those the things where, your word is your bond, right? You're going to show
Yes,
up,
your word is your bond.
yeah. So all of
My
those
word
things.
is my bond. Like it's something I was raised with that too, very much, very traditional, traditional values.
Yeah,
And that's the thing is for everyone. I think is something about character and, um, hopefully it's a little bit more of a kinder universe as well, and stays away from some of the things that we've seen in Web 2 and kind of the nasty comments. But um, something else I wanted to touch on, kind of flipping this, is, we just touched on making sure there's strong connections in real life. And I just finished a conference, kind of a gathering conference, out actually in California. And it was for a company where they have all been kind of remote and siloed, and bringing these people together, and watching really how magical it was. I know I'm using that in a little,
mhm.
bit of a flighty sense, but it really was. People did not stop talking the entire time. They were so excited to like be around people and talk and learn and listen and kind of experience this together. And I think there's something very much about, connection, in-person connection and conversations that you have, in the real life, in real life, that I don't, I don't want people to forget that, and especially
Yeah.
young people.
Well,
So
and we're relearning it too. I mean, I just presented at a conference, a technology conference in Washington D.C. about 3 weeks ago. And I
Mhm.
was really pleasantly surprised how happy people were to be back together again,
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
people would just love to ask me, a person, a question, right? In my presentation. And so
Mhm.
it was very striking, and also I think very grounding, in the sense that this is a technology conference, right? And we're talking
Yeah.
about all kinds of cool things like agents and how these agents can help us in certain ways and stuff. But yet, right there and then, this face to face is an important part of who we are. And I think we forget that sometimes, that we are fully developed people, right? And we actually have a history of wanting to be close together physically, and
Mhm.
share our conversations and things, and
Yeah.
it was pleasantly surprising to me how that really it really kind of fueled the conversation, because you could tell it's been a couple of years, because this is the first time this conference met for like 3 years now, and so
Wow. Yes.
yeah, people
Yeah.
were very, very glad to be back together. Yeah.
I love to hear that. I've been hearing that more and more. In the work that I do, I was pretty, concerned that that was not. People were going to be more apprehensive about convening again, and that they would get, you know, a little bit more particular with when where they go, which I think has happened, but to an extent. But I found that when they actually make the leap and they show up, they're very excited to be there. I hope that that kind of eliminates this idea of like forced team bonding. I hope is a thing of the past. I think that that's just like a lot of it's got taken up too far. But I'm really, curious to see as remote work continues and people are a little bit more isolated, how are we creating connections for different companies, different, cultures within a company, if you want to call it a culture or a creed or a value. And I think there's going to be a couple different layers. I think that you're going to see these metaverse layers that people will be connecting, at home through their own screens, through their headsets, whoever it is. But there's also going to be an element of people coming together, and how companies are creating that very thoughtfully to allow people to really engage with one another, I think is going to be really fascinating to see. So it's going to be kind of this kind of interesting growth trajectory for both of these kind of metaverse, virtual experiential gatherings, and also then what does it look like when you bring people together in person, and then how do you create the connections, in between that. So I think it's a pretty fascinating time, and I hope that there is a lot more of this overlap of finding the connections between the metaverse, virtual, and in person,
Yeah.
because I think there's really really cool stuff that can be done.
And I'll go one up on you.
Okay.
It's kind of my prediction that
Yeah.
as
Give us
we
a
get
prediction.
more experienced with this, we're going to
Mhm.
find that we actually take those characteristics and kind of the way that we behave, right, and expect other
Yeah.
people to behave. That, your word is your bond, and all those kinds of
Mhm.
things, honesty, integrity. And I think that that's going to extend into the metaverse. That we're going to find that the
That
metaverse isn't a place that you can hide, but rather it's a place that's going to accentuate who you actually are.
I
There you
mean, I hope that that is true. That is brilliant, and I hope that's true. That's not losing your soul in the metaverse. That's
go.
really
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
just nailed it. You just nailed it. I
Oh,
will.
and we have to move on to something very important, and that
Okay.
is,
Yes.
you just don't do shows all day. You do other things like consulting, right? And so, can you
I
tell us a little
do.
bit about your consulting
I
services?
do. So I'm an independent consultant, working on a couple of things behind the scenes here, but my work really is about experience design, which really kind of translates into creating impactful and memorable moments for attendees, for brands, and for employees. So, kind of as we're coming back into this new reality, and looking to gather again, I help companies do that. I help brands do that. I help people do that, and really kind of create these transformative moments for individuals and for groups. So
Oh,
it's still within this kind of amazing kind of event and gathering space, but it's something that's part of my really core values is empathy. So I look at everything through an empathetic lens and kind of through the lens of a designer. So it's great. I love it. I get to work with some amazing people. I collaborate with agencies and individuals and brands, and I get to do some really cool
wow.
works.
Well, valuable services indeed. And so
Yeah.
here's where I thank you, Jaci, for being on our show today. And I'm supposed to click on my video to show our closing credits, but who knows what's going to happen today.
We'll see. We'll see.
But thank you. And it's good having you on the show.
Thanks so much, Mark.
And there it is. I clicked on it, but it's not working. So we're just going to end the stream here. And that's just the way it worked this time. But guess what? Just like, we worked through it. And we'll see you all next time. Yes.